Hi everyone. Today I'm gonna interview one of the top in the line appraisers in this episode. So you want to watch this video to the end because you're gonna learn a lot about how the appraisers come up to the value of a home or a building. You don't want to miss out. You're gonna learn ton of information today. Stay tuned to the end of the video. Thank you so much for coming today to this episode filled with information. I would like to know your name, tell the audience, and your company name, and how long you've been in business.
Great. Thank you, Dolph, for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
My name is Mark Hearn. My company name is Hearn Quality Appraisal. I've been in business I started in 1986, working for a bank.
Nice.
And worked for a couple banks, Home Savings, then Washington Mutual, then right before the 2008 crash, actually 2004, Washington Mutual laid off the appraisal staff, and that's when I started my own company. So
it's funny enough that my first bank in the United States around 2008 was Washington Mutual, and I still have their checkbook. And I'm gonna wait 50 years and put it in the museum. But then they got acquired by Chase. Now I have Chase.
Yeah, right.
But I have
But
a
you have the
Washington
old
Mutual. I have the water bottle. So that was really fun. So Mark, tell me, who needs an appraiser? And why?
Well, most of my clients are banks they want to appraise the house for a loan on the property, and they need to know what the value is and what's their security for the loan
To lend on the home.
to lend on the loan. Now, but there is also different needs for an appraisal. A lot of my work is date of death appraisals, where let's say there's a couple that's married and the wife or the husband dies. Well, the house transfers to the wife or to the remaining spouse, and they have to establish a new cost basis as of that date of death.
Okay.
So that it's more for tax purposes, but it's a lot of estate work. I do appraisals for divorce cases. I don't do a lot of litigation in terms of, let's say, contaminated property or loss in value, because it's pretty complex, and I don't really like the court setting that much. It's a little too adversarial for me.
Me either. Me either. It's the normal like residential appraisal is complex by itself. So let alone.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
there's plenty of work there.
Exactly, exactly. So, Mark, the follow-up question is, what is the number one question the client asks you?
Well, that's easy.
Okay.
How much is it worth?
That's a very interesting question, but loaded
A
question.
very loaded question. Yeah, I mean, we have Zillow, we have Redfin, we've got broker price opinions, and the true definition of market value is what a willing buyer and seller would pay for a property in an open market, no duress on either part.
Exactly.
It's not a foreclosure, and that it's it's a quote unquote arm's length transaction.
Exactly.
Now, the appraisal is more of a historic.
Goes back in time.
Right. We've got to. We really go behind the realtors and the buyers and sellers and try to make sense of what they've done.
Exactly. Like what time they listed it, how much,
Right.
why.
And many times when you try to appraise a property, you may have to go back 6 to 12 months, and within the last 12 months, a lot has happened. We've had rate increases. We've had wars break out. We've had
Exactly.
oil prices change dramatically.
We have COVID sometimes.
Yeah, and COVID. So an appraisal is it's kind of a historic report of what has happened to give a lender or someone the user of the appraisal an established value as of that date in time based on retrospective transactions.
Exactly.
Now, if suddenly the next day, they drop the rate,
something
1%,
big happened.
some big traumatic event happens, that could change the whole market dynamics, and
Exactly.
so you could have that could affect the values going forward. So it's really a value as of an effective date
Of today, or
of
like the
today's
date. That's
date
why
or
we
whatever
have
the
the date in the report.
Right, very important. And but I tell people if they want to know what their house is worth, go talk to their realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to their realtor who's active in their market and who knows
The market very well.
who knows what the buyers and sellers are
willing to pay.
willing to
Exactly,
pay, right?
exactly.
And because that's all I'm going to do as an appraiser is I'm going to take 4 or 5 sales that have happened and call those realtors and say, how did you get to this price? Were there any concessions? And what do you think this house would sell for?
Nice.
So
nice.
that
I did not know that.
That's really how an appraiser should do it.
Mhm.
It's we are historians, and we are merely recording the actions of the market participants, which is buyers, sellers, and their agents.
Exactly. Very interesting.
So how much my house is worth is a complicated question.
It is. It is very complicated question. So my follow-up question to you is, Mark, what are the different methods used in the appraisal reports?
Well, we've got 3 approaches to value that is commonly used.
Mm-hmm.
The first would be the sale comparison approach, where you look at, let's say you've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in a relatively conforming neighborhood. Then I'll look for similar 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes that sold within a mile radius within the last 6 months. And it's basically we compare apples to apples. We try not to use oranges.
Yes.
Because
different color though.
Different color, and many times I'll go to a property and they say, well, the neighbor's house down the street sold
for such and
last
such
year for X amount, X price, and it's usually a high price.
Of course.
But when I look into the property, it's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house with a pool, completely remodeled. It's a little different than,
it is very different.
A regular 3-bedroom,
more square
2-bath.
Footage.
It can be larger. It can be different quality, different condition. But what you want to look at is what would a buyer look at for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, or whatever the characteristics of your house is. You want to know, you want to identify that buyer pool. That's, for instance, if you're a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, big families are not going to look at your house.
Exactly.
So to compare them with a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house is not
waste of time.
realistic. It doesn't lend to a credible appraised value.
Exactly.
So that would be the sales comparison approach.
Okay.
The next approach is the cost approach, which in our market here in Southern California is not. It's used quite a bit, especially in new construction, but in a normal refinance of your house appraisal, it doesn't bear much relevance because there's not a lot of vacant land available.
Of course.
So that you
It's
can
all
go
developed.
out, do I want to buy this house or do I want to buy a vacant lot and build the same house? And
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's in areas where land is cheap, which is not Southern California.
No. You have to go really east.
Yeah, or north.
Or north.
Yeah, and the cost of land, or there's available vacant land. It has to be at a price point that makes it affordable, and then you have to have the willingness. I call it the pain and suffering factor of interviewing contractors, getting a contractor to show up, having them, insure their work, and
dealing with the city.
Right, all and the city permits, etc. So, but the cost approach breaks down what would it cost based on current. There's a lot of services that will do cost estimates, cost in place estimates for construction, for building. And so you come up with a kind of an average industry dollar per square foot, come up with your land value, and then subtract any depreciation, add any significant landscaping or structural elements outside of the house, and to come up with a value of what would it cost you to replace this property, and that's the cost approach.
That's the second approach.
And it probably has more relevance in rural areas where there's lots of vacant land and where the land values are
not very expensive.
Well, it's not. It's where when the land value becomes the greatest component of value, then it becomes an economic challenge, because
it changes things.
It does. It does. I can buy a house and tear it down, but by the time I'm finished, I'm gonna have paid more than I would pay to buy a replacement house.
Exactly.
So
okay.
It's a little more complex. The last approach to value is the income approach,
okay.
And that is used. It's used in apartments. It's used in commercial property. It's used in some lease properties. It's basically you determine what the net income of the property is, the annual net income, and then you apply a capitalization rate, or hey, if I had this, let's say I had this much income stream per year, what kind of a return would I expect to make on that? And that's a survey. It's we look at banks, we look at published rates of return, and apply that, and that gives you
the value.
The value in smaller income properties, it's the gross rent multiplier times your rent, and that'll give us an idea of value for that property. And when you're buying, let's say you're buying a fourplex, and you're going to put down $1 million. It's going to be $1 million. Well, the theory behind the income approach is, well, what kind of a return would I expect if I put that $1 million in the bank, or I put it in treasury
CD
bill,
or
CD, etc. So that's the comparison.
Got it.
So you've got three approaches to value: the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and then the income approach. I'd say the sales comparison approach is given the most weight, and it's usually supported by the income approach and often the cost approach as well.
Okay. And they have to come up to almost like close to each other.
Well, if they're wildly apart, then
something is wrong.
then you need to start asking questions. So that's why we do the three different approaches, and hopefully
they support each other.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Got it. So, Mark, this is a good question. I like to ask you, what are the do's and don'ts that the homeowners should know if they were thinking to list their home in the near future? Like, what kind of things they should not do, what kind of things they should do to their property?
That's a good question. And I'm asked that a lot is, hey, should I remodel my house before I sell it? No, don't do that.
And why is that?
Well, I've done many purchase appraisals, homes where they were buying a house,
yeah.
and it was completely remodeled. And as soon as the new owner bought it, they gutted the kitchen, they changed the paint, they took out the carpet,
Wow.
because it's up
Not
to
their style.
It's not their style. It's personal taste. So you may get a return on that investment. You may not.
Exactly.
One man's ceiling is another man's floor.
Yeah.
It's people have different tastes, and I think the best thing for a homeowner who's thinking about selling and wants to maximize the value on their home is to make it look clean and tidy. So, don't have inoperable cars in the backyard.
Okay.
Don't let your dogs run loose.
Yes. Destroy the flooring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the better condition the property is in, the better it will show, and the more likely you are to get a quicker transaction.
Exactly.
The more impediments to or objections that the property presents to a buyer, it has the same effect on the appraisal.
Exactly.
If the house has a lot of deferred maintenance, it needs a new paint job, the floors are worn, there's a lot of personal property. If it's messy, I'm going to look for a house that looks the same as that.
Exactly.
And that's usually not someone who's very serious about selling. That's either a distress sale or it was a trust sale where someone passed away and the heirs just want to sell the house. So
exactly.
So it may not reflect a value that that maximizes the value range.
Okay.
You may reduce the value if the property isn't well cared for.
Exactly. So Mark, what do you think about the illegal additions? Like I see that a lot in some of the listings that I go to.
We're all human.
Okay.
It's part of life.
Okay.
And Fannie Mae recognizes that. They will accept a property with non-permitted additions.
Okay.
Provided they are of workmanlike quality.
Okay.
That they're functional. For instance, a lot of times you'll have a family room added on in the back.
Okay.
And well, if there's only access through the master bedroom, then that's probably not a good
Workmanship. Yeah.
No, it's more of a functional
Functional obsolescence.
obsolescence. But they Fannie Mae will accept a loan on a property with an unpermitted addition, provided the roof isn't falling in, that it's of the similar quality as the rest of the house.
Okay.
A lot of times you'll see the old aluminum enclosed patios,
Okay.
and sometimes people will add a little drywall to that
And make it like a habitable area.
Yeah, to make it, give it a little more weatherproofing.
Exactly.
But that's not going to fly. It's not similar quality. It's not frame construction. It's it's an enclosed patio.
Exactly. So how about the value? Would you add the value, or you just use the value, the square footage of the permitted, like in the property?
Well, you're going to look for permits. You're going to see. You're going to look at the assessor records, and then for the unpermitted area, depending on the quality, we can include it or in the square footage, and it will be given value.
Oh, okay.
So that is allowed. We just have to tell the story of what we saw and what the market is going to accept, because a lot of people like an extra family room.
Exactly.
And back in the 50s or post-war, they were building these houses as fast as they could, trying to get servicemen into homes. And the typical home was a pretty small home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Exactly.
1,200 square feet.
If you are lucky, 2 baths.
Yeah.
Usually 1 bath.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so the need for, extra living area was common. And, over the years, the homes have been added on to, most of them with permits, some without permits. But the market recognizes the need for that larger area, and the buyers are willing to pay. And so that's really the litmus test. If it's in an area where hey, look, we've already got 4,000 square feet, and then you've added on this lesser quality game room.
Exactly.
We really don't need it. We're not going to pay that much extra for it.
Exactly. So to put the audience in perspective, so we are back to the buyer is the willing and able buyer. He decides at the end how much he would pay for the property, even though if it is not permitted, if the workmanship is in a good quality, that you have your smoke detectors, you have the plumbing done correctly, the electrical, and no hazards. So Mark, I want to ask you this question because I'm curious. Is there any difference between the residential appraisal report and the commercial? Because I know you have done both. You are the right person to ask that question.
Well, I have a real estate license, and I sell commercial real estate. But I also have a residential appraisal license. So I don't really appraise commercial property.
Okay.
I do appraise, it's called a mixed use. Let's say there's a storefront on the street and then a duplex behind it.
Oh, okay.
So as long as the storefront is not over 50% of the gross area, then I can appraise that.
Got it.
So in doing that, the income approach is really the main approach to value. We do the process is the same for commercial appraisals as it is for residential appraisals. It's just that you're going to give a lot more weight to the income and income analysis. You want to make sure the operating and income statements are correct, and so that you come up with a reliable net income.
Okay.
And then the cost approach in the industrial properties, that plays a bigger role as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for this lovely info session. Thank you so much, guys, for watching till the end. If you like the video, like, share, and subscribe. Share it to your loved ones to make them benefit. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.